GMC Motorhome Service Newsreel. We're going to talk about recent changes in the GMC Motorhome that are of interest to service technicians. We'll discuss information on new service tools, service procedures, and service tips, covering them in the order of the service manual, starting with the body area. There are some significant changes in the floor substructure, the driver's seat floor step and riser assembly. New body-to-frame mounts are used with the new body substructure, so be sure you have the right part number if replacing a front body mount on a late 1976 motorhome. Also, the body-to-frame insulators are new, shorter length pieces rather than long strips along the frame rail, so check the parts book for the correct part numbers. In the front suspension area, there are two changes in part serviceability. The lower control arm bushings and ball joints are no longer serviced separately. If either bushings or a ball joint need replacement, you have to install a new lower control arm assembly. A new special tool kit, J26559, is available for removing front wheel bearings. It consists of a puller, forcing pad, and two screws for attaching the puller bar to the tool. The kit is used with the existing puller bar J8433 and forcing screw J22214-4. The removal procedure is the same. Install the tools and tighten the forcing screw against the forcing pad to pull the bearing off of the hub. Also, for removal of the front brake disc and hub, there are 3 bearing retainer to knuckle bolts that are hard to reach. An S-shaped wrench, special tool number J22585-01, has been released to make it easier to remove these bolts. We have a new sequence for bleeding the motorhome brakes. The sequence currently shown in the manual starts at the front wheels, then to the rear. The new sequence is reversed. Start with the wheels farthest away from the master cylinder and end with the wheel closest. This sequence reduces the possibility of having to re-bleed one or more of the cylinders. As always, of course, be sure to bleed each line completely until only a solid stream of fluid is returned from the cylinder. Here's another service tip on brakes. When removing a brake drum, it may sometimes be necessary to back off the shoe adjuster to pull the drum's edge past the lining. If so, use a punch to knock out the metal blank in the lanced area of the backing plate. Then push the adjusting lever away from the star wheel with a screwdriver and use tool J4735 to back off the adjusting screw until the drum is free. When you reinstall a brake drum, the initial adjustment is to back the screw off 30 notches from the point where the wheel drags. Be sure to remove the metal block from the brake assembly if not removed earlier, and use tool J21177 to set the initial adjustment. After that, adjustment is automatic. Then, always install a new hole cover in the backing plate to keep dirt and water from getting into the brakes. We'll move to engine electrical now. Many of you are familiar with the high-energy ignition tester, which is used to check out the module in the HEI distributor. Now you can test the tester. Every motorhome dealer who has an HEI tester has been mailed a test sequence for checking the tester. Be sure to use this sequence and the resistor accompanying it to see that your HEI tester is okay. Now let's cover some important points about the Delco maintenance-free battery. This is the side terminal model used on many 1976 motorhomes. Incidentally, maintenance-free means that you don't add water. A change in plate alloy material has minimized the tendency of the battery to gas during charging, so there are no water fill openings, only small vents in the ends of the case. And since gassing is the primary cause of terminal corrosion, maintenance-free also means that you don't have to clean the terminals as often. There are some important points you should understand about checking and charging the battery. First, a green dot in the charge indicator normally means the battery is charged up enough to test. With the green dot showing, don't charge the battery. unless the green dot stays visible after prolonged cranking. Second, if the indicator is dark, no dot visible, the battery needs a charge before you can test it. Third, if the indicator is light yellow, the battery is probably okay for further service. But if it's yellow and the problem is slow cranking, replace the battery. Don't charge it, test it, or jump-start the vehicle. To load test the battery, first connect a 300-amp load across the terminals for 15 seconds to remove the surface charge. Then, reduce the load to 230 amps for Model 89-5 or 170 amps for Model 85-5 for 15 seconds and read the voltage under load. It should be at least 9.6 volts at 70 degrees ambient temperature, or as specified in the maintenance manual for lower temperatures. If the voltage is up to specs, the battery is okay. If it's below specs, replace the battery. When it's necessary to charge the battery, you can use a conventional charger in or out of the vehicle. Terminal adapters are available for charging outside the vehicle. Charge the battery until the green dot appears, or to the maximum ampere hours specified. Even if the green dot doesn't appear after 60 to 70 ampere hours charging, you can proceed with load testing. And an important precaution. To avoid battery damage, reduce the charge rate or interrupt the charging if the battery case feels hot or if there is violent gassing. Refer to Dealer Service Information Bulletin 76-I-15, dated April 1976, and to Section 6Y of the Maintenance Manual for complete procedures and specifications for maintenance-free batteries. Now let's move on to the instrument panel and some instrument wiring changes, and we'll begin with a change related to rear suspension leveling. This is the 3-switch control panel for electro level, a new optional leveling system that replaces power level. It is electrically operated rather than with mechanical valves and provides a bellows isolation feature. However, if the vehicle doesn't have the electro level option, it will have a single rocker switch for automatic leveling during travel or for bellows isolation in the hold position. So this adds some wiring behind the panel and also an additional telltale light. The full story on electro level is in another slide film, MH-20. Also on the front of the panel are a new speedometer head calibrated in both miles per hour and kilometers per hour, and a new gauge cluster with fuel, engine temperature, and oil pressure gauges. And behind the panel, there's a new style electronic switch for the low fuel indicator circuit, which has been relocated in the harness but functions the same. The low coolant warning module also is new and is now taped to the wiring harness rather than mounted under the panel below the light switch. The warning light is now located in the warning light cluster. The module is used with a probe sensor in the radiator. The sensor is actually a variable resistor, and its resistance increases when the radiator coolant drops below the probe. This causes the module to turn on the telltale warning light. Complete diagnosis procedures for both the low fuel warning and the low coolant warning systems are in the Maintenance Manual, Section 12. Now let's look at some service items in the living area of the vehicle. The new Soul Air furnace, as you'll remember from a previous film, is installed under the kitchen sink and must be removed to service or test any components except the flame switch, limit switch, burner, or spark electrode. This is how you remove it. First, turn off the LP gas supply at the tank and remove the furnace fuse, which is located near the furnace reset button. Now it is necessary to remove the complete Davo assembly because the furnace has to come out that way. Begin by raising the seat back and support for access to the mounting bolts. Then remove the front kick pad and the 2 heat ducts, followed by the floor carpeting. And remove 8 mounting bolts to complete removal of the Davo assembly. Next, remove the lower cabinet shelf from the compartment to the left of the furnace for access to the air ducts. Separate the two halves of the furnace electrical connector and disconnect the LP gas line. Remove all the ducts from the furnace and the plenum and push them out of the way. And remove the furnace attaching parts, 3 or 4 bolts attaching it to the floor and 4 screws at the back of the furnace. Under the sink, remove the trap and, with the water pressure relieved, disconnect both water lines from the faucet. Remove the back of the cupboard partition from behind the sink trap. You'll need an offset Phillips head screwdriver to get the upper right and left screws out. Now remove the cabinet mounting bolts and the courtesy light wiring clip and carefully pull the furnace end of the cabinet about 1 inch away from the wall. Slide the furnace away from the outside wall until the vents are clear. Then remove it through the opening at the Davo end of the cabinet. After bench testing and repair, reverse the removal procedure to install the furnace. You can refer to Warranty Information Letter M-76-1 for a brief outline of this procedure and for a revised time guide until the maintenance manual is updated. As you know, there is now a twin-bed motorhome. This model change resulted in some plumbing and wiring changes. The twin-bed model has the bath on the opposite side, and it's a dry bath. It has an enclosed stall shower. The water heater for the twin bed is located under the right rear bed rather than in the bath as on the conventional motorhome. And the water heater on-off switch is conveniently located on the bathroom wall rather than in the electrical compartment. A 6 cubic foot refrigerator is used in the twin bed home because the 7.5 cubic foot refrigerator is too large for this layout. However, this refrigerator is not new. It's the same 6-foot unit used on earlier motorhome models and covered in film MH-9, so you should be familiar with it. Another item that's relocated on the twin-bed model is the power converter. It's under the oven and behind the furnace instead of in the electrical compartment. And the new holding tank gauge is located just above the light switch panel at the entrance door. Let's conclude with a hot flash about serviceability on the Onan motor generator and a tip on setting of the point gap and timing. The latest Onan generators are equipped with a removable cover on the breaker point box and an Allen wrench adjuster screw that you get to through the opening, which is much simpler than the old mirror and screwdriver routine. In fact, it's as easy as setting dwell on a Delco distributor. The maintenance manual gives you a feeler gauge setting for the points and a separate timing procedure. Here is an alternate method you can use to set up both the point gap and timing on either type of breaker point box with pinpoint accuracy. First, use a socket wrench on the flywheel to crank bolt to turn the engine over until you can see the specified timing mark through the timing access hole. Then, separate the breaker point lead wire from the coil and connect either an ohmmeter or a self-powered test light between the lead and a good ground. Turn the breaker point adjuster screw until the points just break and test light goes out or the meter needle swings to infinity. The motor generator then will be timed and the point set accurately. This newsreel film has been a brief summary of service changes, tips, and procedures affecting the 1976 model GMC Motorhomes. As always, keep abreast of what's what service-wise by reading your service bulletins and manuals, and follow the approved service methods to give your customers the best available service.